Good evening and welcome to the Daily News Roundup for today, Wednesday, December 21. I'm Abigail Smythe. Among the stories in this evening's newscast, Finance Minister says all public sector workers should receive salaries by tomorrow. Foreman charged in relation to robbery in porous Manchester. More police deployed to Manchester in response to rising crime. Man sentenced to life imprisonment for killing his ex-girlfriend's niece. Police corporal who reportedly handcuffed his girlfriend and tortured her offered bail. In business, Bank of Jamaica holds interest rate steady at 7%. In the region, Trinidad and Tobago and China signs agreement for construction of state-of-the-art forensic science center. Further overseas, Russian President Vladimir Putin says Russia is not to be blamed for the war in Ukraine. And in sports, Jamaica finishes top of the Women's Track Nations rankings for 2022. Now for the news in detail. Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark says all public sector workers are expected to receive their salaries today, latest tomorrow. The delay in the payment of salaries that were expected on Tuesday has left many public sector workers with jitters. Several public sector groups have expressed over the past 24 hours that their members have not yet received their salaries.
That is something that we definitely regret, and something that we're working assiduously and feverishly to resolve. We're happy that the delay, is not significant. It should have been yesterday, but we're expecting it to happen today. Right? So I do not expect that at 5 o'clock this evening we'll be in the same position that we were at 5 o'clock yesterday.
Among those who have not received their salaries are doctors across the 4 health regions, nurses, staff members of the Court Administration Division, and the vast majority of members under the Jamaica Association of Local Government Officers. Dr. Clark says workers experiencing a delay can expect their payments by Thursday. Out of the 52 ministries, agencies, and departments, 42 have received their salaries. The minister also reminded persons that what the government is attempting was a difficult undertaking. The late signing of some groups and the novelty of the system has also made the process tedious, with computing or algorithm issues being cited as challenges. He has assured that payroll officers had been working tirelessly to ensure payments are made. The police have identified the partially decomposed body of a man who was found floating in the water at the Harmony Beach Park in St. James on Tuesday. He is Carlos Matthews, an employee of the organization. It is understood that Matthews was last seen alive on Sunday. His body was found on Tuesday about 2:25 p.m. Marine officers and divers assigned to the Jamaica Constabulary Force were called in to facilitate the recovery of his body. Lawmen said that Matthews' death is a suspected drowning, as there is no evidence of foul play. A man wanted by the Westmoreland police was shot dead during a confrontation with cops in Betheltown in the parish Tuesday night. A firearm was reportedly seized. The deceased has been identified as O'Shawn Gordon, otherwise called Tavel, from the community. Reports from the police are that about 8 p.m. a team of police officers conducted an intel-led operation at Galloway District in Betheltown in search of Gordon, who was wanted for the 2018 murder of Shavoy Turner. Information led the police to premises where it is believed that Gordon was staying. It is alleged that when the police approached the house, a man was seen walking from the right side of the building and started to act suspiciously when he saw the lawmen. The officers then identified themselves as police, and it is alleged that the man immediately pulled a firearm from his waistband and opened gunfire. The lawmen, reportedly in fear of their lives, took evasive action and returned fire in the direction of the man. When the shooting subsided, the man was seen suffering from gunshot wounds to his upper body and clutching what was found to be a Taurus 9mm pistol with a magazine containing 4 9mm rounds. The man was identified as Gordon. He was subsequently transported to hospital where he was pronounced dead. No member of the police party was injured during the operation. 4 men who are implicated in the robbery in Porus, Manchester, have been charged in an indictment of 3 counts following their appearance before the Manchester Parish Court Tuesday morning. They are charged with the offences of possession, stockpiling, and trafficking of firearms. Commissioner of Police Major General Anthony Anderson provided an update on the case during a tour of sections of the parish on Tuesday. The Commissioner says a wider investigation is underway. A member of the constabulary was also taken into custody in relation to the matter but was questioned and released. General Anderson notes that when a member of the constabulary force engages in criminality, it is seen as a betrayal of not only the force but of the country as well. 2 people were fatally shot and 3 others injured during the robbery at the supermarket on Friday, December 9. The suspects were subsequently intercepted in the Williamsfield section of the parish, where the police reported that an AK-47 rifle was seized. Additionally, 2 handguns, several rounds of ammunition, and a ballistic vest were also reportedly seized. The police commissioner says additional resources and personnel have been deployed to the parish. He notes that a total of 35 named persons have been arrested for various crimes. And the police commissioner says that more police have been deployed to Manchester in response to an increase in crimes in the parish. The increased police presence follows a surge in deadly attacks and robberies, which has been affecting the viability of businesses. General Anderson says strategies are in place to apprehend criminals. He notes that there is an anti-robbery task force that has already been giving results. The commissioner adds that they have also deployed additional personnel from specialized operations and from the Department of Weapons Training and Tactics. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says since the declaration of states of public emergency, SOEs, in several parishes, there has been a reduction in murders per week in the divisions. The enhanced security measure was declared on December 6 and came to an end at midnight on Tuesday. The SOEs were in St. Anne, Clarendon, St. Catherine, St. James, Westmoreland, Hanover, and parts of Kingston and St. Andrew. Prime Minister Holness says there were no recorded gang murders in St. Anne during the SOE. Since the start of the year, there have been 1,442 murders, 37 more than last year. The Prime Minister states that the reckless behavior of criminals in the island is putting the nation's freedom and democracy at risk. He adds that the government remains committed to fighting crime while preserving the Constitution. A man who pleaded guilty to the 2014 killing of the 7-year-old niece of his ex-girlfriend was sentenced to life imprisonment on Tuesday during a hearing in the St. Catherine Circuit Court. Vivian Vernon, who also pleaded guilty to attempted arson, was sentenced to 2 years and 11 months for that offense and life imprisonment for murder. The sentences are to run concurrently. Vernon will serve 21 years before becoming eligible for parole. In handing down the sentence, the judge took into account that Vernon had spent the last 8 years in custody. Vernon was charged for the abduction and murder of Kalisha Cousins and for the attempted arson of the home of his ex-girlfriend. Reports are that Vernon and the girl's aunt had been in a relationship that ended bitterly, and on November 2, 2014, he went to her home and attempted to set it ablaze. 3 days later, Vernon is reported to have abducted Kalisha from a bus stop along Mandela Highway as she was making her way to school. When Kalisha did not turn up for school nor return home, a report was made to the police, whose investigations led them to Vernon's home. The decomposing body of the young girl was found November 7 in a section of the Rio Cobre. A police constable who reportedly assaulted his girlfriend over several days after learning that she had been unfaithful to him was offered $600,000 bail when he appeared in the St. Mary Circuit Court on Tuesday. The constable, Rayon Anderson, who is stationed at the Orange Bay Police Station, is alleged to have battered the woman repeatedly, including kicking her in the mouth, bursting her face with a beer bottle, and stomping on her. It is also alleged that he had kept her handcuffed in their home and that she received some of the assault while being cuffed to a sink. The lawman is also alleged to have shaved the woman's head after forcing her to cut off her hair. It is further reported that Anderson fired shots to intimidate the female and showed her 2 bullets, telling her that he was going to, quote, "boss one," end quote, and use it to poison her. The alleged assault took place in November after Anderson reportedly took the complainant's phone and saw a message from a particular person. The accused is alleged to have confronted the man in question, who confirmed that he had met with his partner. The phone incident arose after Anderson had reportedly slapped the woman in her face after questioning her about the number of men texting her and had broken her phone's SIM card. The woman claimed she had reported the incident to the police when Anderson drove her to the Annotto Bay police station to report that the man who she had the affair with had raped and assaulted her, but Anderson had told them it was the man who had assaulted her. Anderson was arrested and charged after police reportedly went to his home after receiving information about a dispute. On Monday, when Anderson appeared in court, his lawyer, Courtney Rowe, applied for bail on humanitarian grounds. Rowe outlined that Anderson suffers from a medical condition and has visited the hospital on at least 3 occasions while in custody and was admitted on 1 occasion. Rowe submitted the entries that were made in the medical journal at the station where Anderson is being kept to support his submission. The prosecution strongly opposed the bail request, but the judge accepted the application, noting that she did not believe that Anderson is a flight risk. Anderson is to return to court on January 5, 2023. And a detective constable who was placed on trial for killing a man accused of sexually assaulting a member of his family was freed on Tuesday in the St. Catherine Circuit Court. Constable Sean Pennington was freed after the jury returned a unanimous not guilty verdict. He was on trial for the 2018 shooting death of 29-year-old Rishon Oliver, a resident of Point Hill in St. Catherine. Mr. Oliver was found along a road in Point Hill with multiple bullet wounds on February 24. Investigators say they found 14 spent shells and 2 warheads at the scene. Before he passed, Oliver reportedly told the police that Constable Pennington was the assailant. But the trial defense attorney, Christopher Townsend, argued that there was no evidence linking his client to the killing. Mr. Townsend said evidence in the case pointed to 2 assailants, while the prosecution suggested 1 person carried out the attack. The Ministry of Labour says it has not been turning away Jamaicans applying for the farm work program because of their weight or childbearing status. The ministry was responding to questions regarding complaints from political representatives who alleged that their nominees for the overseas program were being turned away based on these reasons. In a report last Wednesday, Councillor for the Claremont Division, Lambert Ware, claimed that some applicants he recommended were told they were too fat and they didn't look like farmers. For her part, Councillor of the Limehall Division, Geneva Gordon-Bailey, says she had long been careful not to send certain people because she recognized that individuals of a certain age and weight, and even people with 4 children or more, were allegedly not being accepted. However, the Ministry of Labour, in its response, says persons are not generally turned away due to their height, weight, or childbearing status. The ministry says notwithstanding, people should bear in mind that the jobs for which persons are being considered are physically demanding. The Labour Ministry says it must also be noted that the objective of the selection exercise is to choose the persons who are deemed most suitable to perform the jobs. It says consideration is given to the physically demanding nature of the jobs and the potential risk for accidents and/or injury. It also says consideration has to be given about applicants' ability to completely undertake the type of work that they will be required to do. In relation to the issue of persons being turned away due to their childbearing status, the ministry says it is not aware of this and is seeking further clarification in relation to this allegation. It says while the application for females is low, several of the women who participate in the program are of childbearing age. The age criteria is 21 to 45 years old. In business, with the latest inflation data showing consumer prices still on the ascent, Bank of Jamaica (BOJ's) Monetary Policy Committee held interest rate steady at 7% in its latest decision issued on Tuesday. The central bank noted that while November inflation had climbed to 10.3%, it was within its forecast range of 9.5% to 10.5%. Additionally, BOJ said core inflation, which excludes food and fuel, had declined from 9% in October to 8.8% in November. Last week, the Fed and other central banks in the European Union and the United Kingdom continued to raise interest rates, but at a more restrained half-point hike instead of the three-quarter-point adjustments that previously prevailed. As for the Jamaican economy, BOJ says the September quarter is expected to record growth within a range of 3.5% to 4.5% amid continued expansion of tourism activity, while the December quarter is forecast to expand at a slower pace within a range of 2.5% to 3.5%. In the region, an agreement has been signed between the governments of Trinidad and Tobago and China for the construction of a state-of-the-art forensic science center. The construction is being done through a series of economic and technical cooperation agreements between the two countries. The Twin Islands National Security Minister Fitzgerald Hines says the new facility is envisioned to be modern, with adequate storage and laboratories for biology, chemistry, toxicology, ballistics, motor vehicles, pathological anatomy, and other technical inspections. And on the international scene, Russian President Vladimir Putin believes Russia is not to be blamed for the war in Ukraine. He says both countries are sharing a tragedy. During a televised address with senior military officials, the Russian president said he continued to see Ukraine as a brotherly nation. He claims that the conflict was the result of the policy of third countries and not down to the Russian policy. The theory, which implies Western expansion is the cause, has been repeatedly dismissed outside Russia. President Putin claims the West had brainwashed post-Soviet republics, starting with Ukraine. He says for years they tried to build good neighborly relations with Ukraine, offering loans and cheap energy. He says, however, that this did not work. The Russian president says there is nothing to accuse Russia of and that what is happening now is a tragedy and is not Russia's fault. And finally, in sports, Jamaica finished top of the Women's Track Nations rankings for 2022. The World Athletics rankings, which were based off data from the 2022 World Athletics Championships in Eugene, Oregon, have the Jamaican women finishing first with 75 points, followed by the USA in a close second with 74 points and Ethiopia in third with 60 points. Meanwhile, Great Britain, Kenya, Netherlands, Nigeria, Kazakhstan, Bahamas, and the Dominican Republic rounded out the top 10 women's teams. Jamaica finished third on the overall medal table with 10. 2 golds, 7 silvers, and 1 bronze. The women contributed to the majority of the medal tally, with the men only copping a silver medal in the 4x400 meters relay. And that's it for your news roundup for today. I'm Abigail Smythe. See you next time.